Hello, everyone. Welcome to Virtual Parent Information Night. I'm going to cover some pieces of information that I would like you to know about fifth grade. So, first, a little bit about me. My name is Mrs. Knutson. This will be my seventh year teaching at St. Joe's. I have only ever taught at St. Joe's and I absolutely love it. I graduated from the College of St. Benedict in 2016, and I'm actually currently working toward my master's degree at the University of St. Thomas. So some of you may know that St. Ben's and St. Thomas used to be a bit of rivals, but I am really enjoying the education department at St. Thomas, even though I will always be a Benny at heart. I currently live in Farmington with my husband Josh and our puppy Gus, who we adopted last May. Here's a picture of us. And a fun fact for returning families, which I'm sure many of you already know, is that Mrs. Wells, our former fourth grade teacher, and I have been friends since our freshman year of college. So right off the bat, I want to give you some contact information and an important link. So I do have a fifth grade class site that I have created that houses a lot of good information for students and families, especially a lot of important links. Things like links to iExcel, Google Classroom for students, links to the band website, tracking family volunteer hours, looking at your students' lunch account, those types of things are also for parents. So please check out that website if you haven't already. Explore it and see what resources are available to you. Also, I have two email addresses. I have all my emails going into one inbox, so it does not matter which one you use, but brooke.knutson at stjosephcommunity.org and brooke.knutson at stjoesapps.org are the best ways to get in contact with me. I usually try to respond to emails within 24 to 48 hours, unless, of course, it is over a weekend. Then it would be 24 to 48 hours on the next weekday. All right, let's dive right in. One of the major things I like to talk about is homework in fifth grade. Now, it can be tough to pinpoint an exact amount of time that your student will be spending on homework every day or every week. So instead, I like to talk about the types of homework your student will have. So in fifth grade, we have daily, weekly, occasional homework, and then just discussion-based subjects. So daily homework should be expected in math and your students' daily reading minutes. So not necessarily reading homework, but just independent reading time they should be accomplishing each day. So for math, here is a copy or a picture of our math workbook. You should expect your student most school days to have math homework in that workbook. For reading minutes, I do not have anything that parents need to sign stating that they confirm their student read every night in the month of September, for example. However, it is expected that students are reading daily. So in fifth grade, first trimester, students should be reading 20 minutes a day independently. Then in trimester 2, we bump it up to 25 minutes. And then trimester 3, 30 minutes. So that by the end of fifth grade, your student is comfortable reading for a half hour on their own each day. I do this for two reasons. First, it's always good to build up your students' reading stamina. And it also encourages them to read and to find books that they enjoy reading to make their daily reading time enjoyable. And the second reason is that in middle school, they most likely will be having reading homework. So I don't want your student to feel overwhelmed if they are having to go home and read something independently for an assignment in their actual reading class. So just be aware that even though you are not signing off on reading minutes every day, that is expected of your fifth grader. So right now we're in trimester 1, so you should be encouraging your student to read 20 minutes every day. So that's our daily homework, math and reading minutes. Weekly homework. So classes where your student will have homework throughout the week, but not necessarily on a daily basis. That includes spelling, Spanish, take-home folders, and band. So returning families in fourth grade, your students had spelling menus. And I believe in fourth grade, your student needed to complete 4 spelling menu activities every week. Then they would come in on Friday, staple those activities together, and turn them in. And that's, of course, when they would take their spelling tests. In fifth grade, it's very similar, except instead of 4 spelling menu activities, I expect students to complete 3 spelling menu activities. The reason why I do 3 instead of 4 is because in fifth grade, that is usually when students begin a lot more sports and activities after school. So I like to try and be accommodating of that. I know with most sports, there is 1 day a week where your student has a game or a competition and may be out late. So in fifth grade, your student is expected to complete 3 of their spelling menu activities. The second week of school is when we begin spelling, so we will be going over all of that then. I'm recording this video ahead of time, so we have not reached the second week of school yet as I'm recording this video. For Spanish, we have Spanish every other day in fifth grade. And so typically Senora will assign homework most days, but your student doesn't need to have it done for the next school day, just for the next Spanish class. So that's about every other day. Take-home folders in fifth grade, I just expect them to be taken home every weekend. So usually I will hold on to pieces of information that need to be passed out to students and families. I hold on to it, pass it all out on Fridays. That way it's in your students' take-home folder. They will bring it home over the weekend. And that's the only thing I like to have signed in fifth grade. Your student will have a parent signature sheet in their black take-home folder. And I just ask that that gets signed every weekend. It could be a parent, a grandparent, another trusted adult at home, as long as an adult at home is going through the contents of your students' take-home folder and signing off on the sheet saying, yep, they brought it home, I looked through everything. That's all that needs to happen. Students do receive a responsibility point for getting their take-home folder signed. So please make sure you are coming up with a routine of checking and signing those take-home folders every weekend. And then, of course, if your student is in band, they should be practicing their instruments at least weekly. So make sure that that also is given the proper amount of time every week. Occasionally, students may have homework in book clubs, art, and music, but typically it's just subjects where your student may be missing class time for a band lesson. Band rehearsal, which I'll talk about a little bit later, that's where all the band students in class go over to RES. I alter our schedule on those mornings because most of our class is gone. So your student will not miss learning time while they're at their rehearsal. But for their individual or small group band lessons, they do miss some class. And so it is up to them to be making up what they missed in time for the next class. For art in third, fourth, and fifth grade this year, we do have an art teacher, Mrs. Fossen. So I'm not quite sure how she will handle completing art projects and art assignments. We will have to wait and see. And then music, Mrs. Mansour does give quizzes and tests and will give students review sheets. So that's why that's occasional homework. It's just kind of as those types of assignments and needs arise. And then our discussion-based subjects that don't really have homework include religion, science, and social studies. That's primarily completed in class, so don't expect homework in those subjects. One thing I do also like to point out to parents is that students on average will receive around 15 to 35 minutes of work time each day at school. If we as a class are doing really well, we're focusing, we're moving through our subjects, asking great questions, that often will free up time. And I like to give when or whatever I need time when that happens, so that students who maybe would like more time to work on their math homework or more time to get in their reading minutes because they know they're going to be busy after school, I like to give that time. So if your student is coming home saying, yeah, I completed my math homework at school and my 20 minutes of daily reading, they very well could have if we had a really successful day and moved through our subjects quicker than I anticipated. However, I also encourage students to be bringing home their homework to show parents at home. So if your student is not bringing home their math homework, for example, and you really want to see it and check it and look through it with them, ask them to. They should be bringing it home. So with homework, we do need to talk about late work and missing assignments. So first of all, your students' grades and assignments can be checked 24/7 on Educate. So you have as much access as you want to Educate. And I expect families to be checking their students' grades and assignments at least on a weekly basis. Now, of course, you know your student really well. You may feel comfortable only checking once a week. You feel your student has been taking on responsibility and is really good usually at turning in homework. Maybe your student is still working on that skill. If that's the case, I highly encourage you to be checking a few times a week, because I try to enter in grades every other day. That's what I strive for. Of course, busier weeks like conference weeks, it probably will only be once a week when I'm entering in grades, but I do strive for every other day. So if you are checking on a regular basis, you can see updates and if your student has turned in homework or not. So, I want to talk a little bit about the difference between a missing assignment and a late assignment, because when you go into Educate, I will flag assignments with certain colors, and it will tell you if it's a missing or a late assignment. So, a missing assignment is an assignment that has not been turned into me. I have not seen it, it has not made its way into my hands. A late assignment is an assignment that has been turned into me, but it was after the assignment deadline. So in fifth grade, most of our daily homework assignments, like our math pages, are worth 2 points. So if I go around and check math homework and your student doesn't have it done, it's missing. And I would enter it in as missing and it would show a 0 out of 2 points in that example. So if there is a missing assignment, your student does not receive points for that assignment at that point. If, however, your student completes the assignment and turns it in late, then I will update the status of the assignment and Educate to late, and your student will receive partial credit. They will receive some points for it. So if your student does ever forget about an assignment or doesn't turn it in, please highly encourage them to still submit it late, because some points are better than no points. And I really try to drive that home with fifth graders. So along with homework, we also have trimester duties, and there's really just one in fifth grade, and that is the trimester service project. So the trimester service project is completed once every trimester, so 3 total for the year, and it's a 1-hour long service project to the community. Some examples include volunteering at Feed My Starving Children, making tie blankets for a retirement home, organizing and donating old clothing or toys, mowing, raking, shoveling for neighbors, baking cookies and delivering them to neighbors. Lots of ideas. And what your student does is they perform 1 hour, at least 1 hour of service for their community, and then they fill out a service project form. I have a picture of the front side of the form here, and this is more the logistic information. On the back side, or the second page of the form, are questions that your student fills out, which encourages them to reflect on their hour of service. So your student completes their hour of service, they complete the form. You can see that here that it asks for a couple different signatures. Really, the only thing here that is required at the bottom part of the first page is the parent's signature. We do not need the supervisor's signature or comments. It's always fun to have that, but we for sure need a parent signature and the information at the top, as well as your students' answers to the questions on the second page. So once the form is filled out, then your student just needs to turn it into me by the end of the trimester, and then they get those points for their service project. The service project, because it's serving others, serving our community, that falls under religion as an assignment. Now, one thing I do always like to point out to families is that the service project should benefit the community, not just a student's immediate family and household. So doing things like chores at home, those should be getting done anyways, and that would not count towards a service project. This should be something that benefits the community. So if your student comes to you and says something like, oh, I want to make cookies for my siblings, encourage them to think beyond that and say, oh, I love that idea, but that's just only really serving our house. How can we take that idea and maybe serve our neighborhood community or our church community? So maybe they're making cookies for people in a religion class or Bible study group, or they're making cookies and passing them out to neighbors. So really encourage your student to be thinking about how they will benefit the community, not just their own family and household, because that is the purpose of the service project. All right, so at St. Joseph School, we have our honor system, and students receive positive consequences for following the honor system. And then, of course, there are some negative consequences if they are not following the honor system. So when students follow our honor pledge, they are showing humility, obedience, neighborliness, respect, and taking opportunities to show their faith. So when students accomplish these things, they are able to earn an honor slip from teachers, which they can then cash in for classroom prizes. And they can also turn in to be nominated for Student of the Month at school. Honor slips can be given by any teacher to any student, regardless of grade. So I can give honor slips to any student in the building. Your student can receive an honor slip from any teacher in the building. So love talking about honor slips and our positive consequences. On the other end of the spectrum, of course, is if a student is not following our honor pledge after reminders. So that's when students are not showing these items listed on the example honor slip at the top here. So when that happens, a student can receive what is called a check. And so checks can be given if a student is blurting out, being disrespectful, misusing electronics, they have gum or candy when they do not have a gum pass, they're using inappropriate language, they're not being neighborly, they're not prepared for class, or they have a lack of self-control. And so just like with honor slips, checks can be given out from any teacher, any adult in the building. And typically what we follow is if a student receives 3 checks in one day, then it is an email home. So I would email home saying something akin to, your student was showing these behaviors in these classes. This is what we talked about. This is how we're planning to move forward. I would greatly appreciate it if you would also discuss this situation and today with your student at home. Now, in 5th grade, it is a little bit different than it may have been in 4th grade because the type of check your student receives may have a different weight. So if you look here on our slide, if a student receives a check from me, it's the equivalent to 1 check. Because I get to have your students all day, if a member of our class is having a rough day and maybe is interrupting class and doing things that impact their learning and the learning of others, they receive a check. I have the flexibility to move things around because I see your students for most of the day. I don't really have a time limit with them. So I can still make sure we are learning what we need to learn that day. However, if a student were to receive a check from a specialist teacher, we do count that as 2 checks in 5th grade. And the reason behind that is specialist teachers only get to have your student for 40 minutes. Therefore, if your student, or a student, I should say, is, being disrespectful or disruptive for 10 minutes, that's a fourth of a class period. And then that specialist teacher may not see the class again for several days. And so we talk in 5th grade about how specialist time is very important and specialist teachers' time is very important with them. So if they are misbehaving in class despite reminders and a specialist teacher gives them a check, we count it as 2 checks because they get less time in those classes. And then if we were to have a substitute teacher or another, like a specialist teacher had a substitute, and that substitute, despite reminders, has to give a student a check or write down their name for a negative reason, we count that as 3 checks, which would be an instant email home. We talk in 5th grade a lot about how substitutes are guests in our classroom and in our school. And so it is our responsibility to go out of our way to be kind and helpful. And if a substitute has to give a check, that is the complete opposite of our expectations for ourselves. So it would be an instant email home. So we talk a lot about this in 5th grade. Students already know the different weights of the checks. And this helps prepare them for middle school as well, where most of their classes, they only get 40 to 80 minutes with a teacher and then they're gone. So we start practicing that in 5th grade. One resource we use a lot, or students use a lot, is Google Classroom. They have the login information to log into Google and Google Classroom inside their classroom planners, which they should be bringing home every day. At home, all that they would need to do is go to google.com and sign into their school account. And then for parents, I like to communicate with you and send you updates and information through a weekly newsletter. I like to send them on Mondays. That way you get it at the beginning of the week. And I like to include anything important that's happening that week or in upcoming weeks. I also include many links to things such as our 5th grade class website, to Educate, to Scholastic to place book orders. I'm recording this video ahead of time, but the first newsletter will be sent out on Monday, September 11th. So if you do not receive that or have not received that, please email me. Sometimes I miss an email that I'm adding to my parent contact list, and I would be more than happy to add an additional email for you if you are not receiving the newsletter. All right, one other thing I like to go over is student absences. So if your student is absent, please make sure you're notifying both Mrs. Meaden, and I have her email address here, and I as soon as possible when you know your student will be absent for the school day. 2 reasons. First of all, it helps with collecting work. That way, if I'm able to send some materials home for your student, I can. But mainly it's because if I don't hear why your student is absent, I'm going to worry about them. If they do not show up to school and we have not heard why, I'm going to worry about your child. And so you notifying the school and me helps us know, okay, they are safe, and they won't be at school today. Also, if there's ever a change in plans for how your student will be going home, I know that, life happens and maybe in the middle of the day you realize, oh, your student needs to go on the bus instead of car or whatever it is. Please try to be notifying me by 11:30 a.m. that day. The reason being that there are some days where I'm with your students all afternoon, and so I don't have the opportunity to check my email after 11:30 a.m. Now, of course, if there's a last minute change, it's past 11:30 a.m., please make sure you are calling the office, and then the office will call down to me to let me know about any changes. If you go in and look at your students' attendance, you may see excused and unexcused absences. An excused absence is given for things like appointments, illness, family emergencies, funerals, those types of things, whereas an unexcused absence is for absences due to vacations, concerts, failure to notify the school at all that your student's going to be gone, anything like that. So just please make sure you are communicating with the school. All right, my last big piece of information that I have for you is about band. And Mr. Shervy, Matt Shervy, the Rosemont Elementary School band director, has been doing a great job of emailing out updates and information regarding band this year. So 2 things that your student will be participating in are instrument lessons and big band rehearsal. Instrument lessons are your students' small group or individual lessons where they are just learning how to play their instrument with other people who play their instrument. And those lessons take place in the afternoons on either Mondays, Tuesdays, or Wednesdays, depending on the instrument your student plays. So for instrument lessons, a bus will come to St. Joe's, pick up your child, bring them to Rosemont Elementary School. They will have their lesson, then they will be bused back to school. Big band rehearsal, this is when all students of all instruments come together and they practice songs together, take place at Rosemont Elementary School every Tuesday morning starting in October. And I know Mr. Shervy sent out the start date, so check your email if you're wondering. The difference with instrument and big band rehearsals is that for big band rehearsal, there is not a bus that can take your student to Rosemont Elementary School because it's right away in the morning. So an adult needs to drop off your student for big band rehearsal at Rosemont Elementary School on those Tuesday mornings once it starts. Once your students dropped off, they'll have that big band rehearsal, and then they will all be bused back to St. Joe's or bused to St. Joe's. So you just need to worry about getting your student to Rosemont Elementary School on those Tuesday mornings. We have it covered and have a bus taking them from Rosemont Elementary School to St. Joseph School after big band rehearsal. Now, for big band rehearsal on Tuesday mornings, your student will not be missing any new learning. I alter the schedule because a good chunk of our class is gone. I'm not going to teach anything new. During your students' instrumental lessons, however, they will be missing some classwork. I've designed our schedule to where those afternoon subjects, your student either it's a subject where they are mainly working in class and don't have homework for, or it's a subject where they are paired up in a group or have a partner that they get to check in with when they get back from their lesson to find out what they missed and get started on that work. Some contact information for band. I have Mr. Shervy's email here and the band website. And remember that band website is also linked on the 5th grade website. All right, as far as I know, this is the most up-to-date lesson schedule for St. Joseph School students. So flute, clarinet, and saxophone players should be bringing their instruments on Mondays for those instrumental lessons. Trumpet and French horn players should be bringing their instruments on Tuesdays. So if your student has a Tuesday lesson, once big band starts, they'll go to big band, come to school, and then later in the afternoon, they'll have their instrumental lessons. And then on Wednesdays, low brass and percussionists should be prepared to have their lessons. And these are the different times. All right. Thank you for bearing with me. There's always just a lot of information for 5th grade because we do some things that are similar to 4th grade, some things that are kind of in between 4th grade and middle school. And then, of course, there's all of the really exciting band information. So thank you for sticking with me through this video. Again, here is the link to our class website and my email addresses. I'm really looking forward to teaching your students and working together as a team to make this a very successful year. Thank you.